Newstalk ZB.
23 minutes away from 8. It's Monday morning. The Prime Minister is in the studio. Christopher Luxon, good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm very well. The announcement coming today, I'm sure you don't want to preview it too much, the primary, the resources, the classrooms and stuff. Does that come, is there money attached to this? Because at $2.1 billion, you don't have much left.
Yeah, look, it's part of our pre-budget announcements. On education, we've actually done a very good job of finding wasteful money and actually redeploying it. If you think about the cost of those classrooms at $1.2 million when we started, we've got that down to $600,000. That means you've got more money. So there's been quite a good program of work actually in education about identifying back office savings and then getting it forward deployed into the teachers.
So what do we get today? Is it literally more resource?
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that later on this afternoon. You would have seen this morning, we've had some good initially encouraging results on our maths program. We've put a whole new structured mathematics program in place in the last year and a half. That's more like a Singaporean or Australian approach to teaching maths. Our teachers have done an amazing job actually getting that into classrooms, and our kids seem to be responding to it pretty well, which is good.
The social cohesion thing that you talked about at your speech last week, what is that about when it comes to immigration?
It's just essentially saying, look, actually I was trying to say something a bit broader than there's been some misinterpretation.
You sounded momentarily like Winston had got to you. There is
That's the opposite. What I was trying to say very clearly, and you and I have had this chat before, is look, if you think about social cohesion, we take it for granted that there's going to be social trust and social cohesion in New Zealand to each other and with our institutions. Around the world, it's a major problem, and there's actually some rising pressures on it here in New Zealand as well. I think if you're going to be driving broad national security and make New Zealand stronger and more secure, you need that to be in good shape. The point I was trying to make was, look, our immigration system is, our immigrants have done an amazing job. They shouldn't be vilified. They come here, they work damn hard, they do an incredible job. But the reason it works in New Zealand is because we've got a smart, targeted and fair immigration system. And I think there's a bit of anti-immigration sort of cosplay going on where some politicians are pretending to be Trump or Farage or Le Pen because we don't have
Who are those politicians?
Well, I think, frankly, remarks from Winston, for example.
Exactly, the coalition parties.
We don't have uncontrolled or illegal immigration in this country. I lived in the US for 8 years. There's 13 to 14 million illegal immigrants inside the US today. In the UK, they get about 115 people a day coming over illegally in small boats alone. There's probably 1 million folk inside the UK that they think are illegal. Go look at Germany. They had 1 million asylum seekers come in a single year. So we haven't had that problem of illegal and uncontrolled migration. Equally, look at Canada. They failed to link their immigration policy to their economic story and ultimately to their infrastructure capacity, and they've had to revisit all of their settings as well. We have tightened up our settings over the last 2 years. We've gone from, when we started, 130,000 net migration now to 25,000. We've gone from 70% low skilled to 70% high skilled. And all I was signalling was we're going to continue to make sure that system has integrity by being, smart.
Well, we got the numbers last week. Is 25,000-ish net gain about right? Roughly.
It's been about 31,000 average from 2002 to 2025 from memory. So we're getting, it's about right because it's, that's the sort of, in that vicinity, we can handle that. And everything's linked to our green list of where we've got job shortages. And that's why I've reacted so strongly to the Indian FTA claims about it's just a massive immigration coming to New Zealand. That's just not true. If you're going to have a conversation on immigration, get bounded on the facts and know exactly what we have to do.
Even if you listen to Winston, which I did yesterday in a speech, even if everything he says is true in terms of the people coming in it doesn't strike me as a problem. It's 10 to 20,000 people, honestly, which is not the end of the world.
If you look at Canada, which previously had an immigration policy, but in the last probably 6-7 years lost the plot on it, didn't keep it linked to its economic challenge. That's when you lose it. And that's at 25,000 net migration. We've averaged 31,000. That's been about right. Yeah. We can build the houses. We can actually make sure that we've got the vacancies that we have in the economy filled. While also knowing we've got to get our people off unemployment and out of welfare into work as well. So, I think we've done a very good job of balancing all of that. And as I keep saying, we've got a smart, fair, targeted system.
The Waitangi Tribunal came out with yet another one of their reports on treaty clauses. This is with education. You're, I'm assuming, going to do nothing with it?
On education, treaty clauses, we're doing a lot.
Treaty clauses within the education system and the adherence to the treaty within education.
Oh, look, honestly, I'm over that conversation. Our schools,
that's fine,
and they need to be.
Why
focused.
Then are you paying for them?
Well, who, the Waitangi Tribunal?
Yeah.
Well, because
why are you paying for them to come out with yet more of this that you're going to go, oh, I'm over this?
Well, they're entitled to come out with their views.
But
you're
clearly, funding them.
We're not making schools, say that they've got a primary responsibility to honour the treaty. Their primary responsibility is get kids to school and
100%.
teach them well.
Most people would agree with you, and yet you continue to fund the Waitangi Tribunal to the tune of tens of millions of dollars a year that you don't have to come out with stuff you're going to ignore.
There is a bigger question, as I've said before, about the Waitangi Tribunal, which we'll have to look at, which is actually what is its role going forward. Whether you are pro the Waitangi Tribunal or against it, the reality is both sides would say post-treaty settlements, which we're increasingly cranking through, what is the future of that organisation?
So I've asked you about this before, and you this strikes me as something similar to the social media reform, which struck me as you not being overly enthusiastic about it. Just sort of
can we talk about that one?
No. We can if you answer me properly. If you answer me properly on the Waitangi Tribunal, this seems to be one of those things you're kicking down the road. What work is it? Where's Tama on this? He's been at this for 2 years.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Waitangi Tribunal has had a role well established in New Zealand, whether you like it or don't. That's been the role that it's had for a long time. It started really with treaty settlements and even a bit before.
But we're done.
But we're not completely done. We've got a few. We're getting almost done.
Well, why aren't we more done? Because they're writing clauses about what you're doing in education. You just
they write stuff to us all the time.
I know that. But you're funding them to do this crap.
Well, yes, but I have to. But we've got a responsibility given how they've been set up. And all I'm saying to you is that we have to ask a pretty big question. And when we do it, we have to really
That's what
think
I'm
deeply
asking.
about it.
So why? How has it taken you so long to ask this pretty big question? How long does Tama need?
Well, it's
to ask the question.
Well, he is working his way through it. It's important that if we're going to make any changes to the Waitangi Tribunal and its remit, as I've said from the beginning, when you're closing out treaty settlements, you've got to question what the role of the organisation is going forward.
Why are you getting stuck into this?
Well, mate, there's been quite a lot to get stuck into before we get to this issue.
Because the social media thing's the same.
Well, I mean, in terms of this issue,
I said to you, it struck me right from the start. You're not gripped by this.
I am.
No,
deeply.
you're not. Because you've looked all around the world, and what you've found is it doesn't work.
Disagree completely.
It doesn't work.
No.
And if it does work, why haven't you done what Australia does, Denmark did, anyone else did?
Well, that's exactly what we are doing. We're bringing a piece of legislation to the House before the election. We've got a comprehensive piece of work with legislation that's being drafted right now. I hope we get really good bipartisan support for it. I'm a big fan of it, because when I met Jonathan Haidt back in 2017 or something, and I've seen the mobile phone ban, Mike. Cyberbullying is down, kids' attention in classrooms up. We need to put guidelines on our kids.
Well, why aren't you doing it? There's a whole bunch of countries already beating you to it.
No. There's only Australia that's gone off and actually got it in law and actually got it functioning now, and it's really from the beginning of this year. We're coming from different starting points, but we're ultimately going to get to the same place.
So when it says on Friday it's on hold, it's not on hold?
No, there's two bits of work going on. You remember Catherine Wedd had a members' bill,
yes,
and that was actually
that's on hold.
That's all she asked for. Can you just postpone it and push it down what's called the order paper, because we've got a more comprehensive government piece of work underway. That's on track. That's on time.
So that's the bit that's coming forward, not Catherine's bit, which is
correct, because it's properly done as a government bill rather than a members' bill. But we need to do that. Parents want us to do that. Our principals want us to do it. The kids ultimately want us to do it.
Why haven't you bought the BNZ?
Because I don't have a spare $30 billion hanging around in a bank account, and I don't really want to go borrow another $30 billion. So that sounds like a Labor Party policy or a Green policy.
How is it you're in government with a bloke who wants to buy the BNZ knowing full well we're not going to buy the BNZ and we haven't got the money, it's not even for sale?
We ain't buying the BNZ.
I mean, this is unfortunately farcical, isn't it?
It is completely fanciful. It's not happening. It doesn't make any sense because... for a government to go out there, borrow a heap of money, let's be clear how we do it. You can call it sovereign bonds or whatever the hell you want, but it's all still borrowing money. It's just fancy words for borrowing more money. To go borrow $30 billion for the government to buy a private company to run, that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Yep.
Does it worry you that that's put out there into the election campaign and there's possibly people who believe that and it will be part of the coalition negotiations post-November?
Well, I just have to be... there's other things I'd sooner be doing than borrowing $30 billion and any money. We've got a debt challenge as it currently is, and the Greens want to put $44 billion on it. This would be a $30 billion add to it. It's just not feasible, and I don't understand why you'd want to do it.
No.
What we want to do is make sure Kiwi Bank's more competitive, And actually, Kiwibank's the fastest growing bank in the country, and we just charge them with one remit, which is your job is to aggressively grow and take the fight to the Australian banks.
And you think there's enough money out there in the private sector to be interested in investing to expand?
Yeah, well, I mean, at the moment, because we made some changes to the Reserve Bank capital rules, they don't need that $500 million that you and I talked about last year. But what we've also said is, in the future, if you ever needed capital, don't ever stop growing and taking the fight to the banks, the Aussie banks. And if you ever needed capital, that's something that you should keep in mind.
And you don't think the broad idea that Winston's perpetrating, despite the absurdity of the BNZ aspect, is keeping stuff in our control. So you don't think that us owning Kiwibank and us expanding it, as opposed to the private sector expanding it, is not a
at the moment, Kiwibank don't need an injection of capital. They're growing well. They've got enough flexibility with the recent changes to say we're good with capital. To be able, I just don't want capital to be a constraint on their ability to go aggressively compete with those Australian banks. And that's all that letter was saying. A, we expect you to aggressively grow. That's your primary task, is to hurt the Australian banks. Two, if get a growth strategy in place, we want to see it so we know that you've got a plan. And then three, keep an eye that down the road in the future, if there was ever a time when you felt you couldn't deliver on that task of growth and competition,
let us know.
Let us know.
All right, appreciate your time. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, 13-2.